Shalom to all! Today's daf is Rosh Daf Chav Beis. We are starting 4 lines from the top with the brand new Mishnah. And today's daf is sponsored Lilu Nishmas, Mars, Miriam, Sarah, Bas, Rabbi Yaakov, Maisha, her Neshama should have an aliyah, and Lilu Nishmas, Rabbi Yachmiel, Mordechai, Ben Reb Chaim, his Neshama should have an aliyah. Now we know that certain people are not allowed to testify. For example, relatives are not allowed to be witnesses for a case of Bezdin. Does this apply to Kiddush HaChodesh? The Mishnah says, Avu b'nai Shoros HaChodesh, a father and her son, they saw the new moon, Yelchu, they are allowed to go to Bezdin. Leshem start from Zem Zed, not that they're allowed to combine with each other, not allowed to give Eidos together. If one of them becomes puzzled, becomes disqualified, we know the Bezdin asks them a lot of questions and interrogates them, and if in the course of this questioning one of them becomes disqualified, so we're going to have the other one, Yitztar Fasheni Acher, so the other one who has not been disqualified, he could join up with another person who happens to be in Bezdin to give Eidos. Rabbi Shimon, he argues and he says, Avu b'nai v'chala krevim ksherim le'is HaChodesh, a father and son, and all relatives for that matter, they are actually allowed to give testimony for Kiddush HaChodesh together. Now, Amar Rav Yossi, he says, Ma'aseh b'Tovia Reifa, there's a story with Tovi the doctor, Sheras HaChodesh Yerushalayim, he saw the new moon in Yerushalayim, who u'b'nai ve'avdim shachar, he saw it, his son saw it, and his freed slave, who's considered like a Jew, they all saw the moon together. The Kibla Kehanim Oisai Vesbenai, and the Kehanim who were kind of doing the vetting process of who's being accepted, they accepted him and his son, but Upasal is Avdei, they apostled his servant. That's because they had a drasha that said that since he wasn't born a Jew, he's not allowed to be an aid. But Uchshabol Lifnei Bezin, when they actually came in front of Bezin, who are actually going to be the ones that are posketing whether or not it's considered the new moon, so Kibla Oisai Vesavdei, they accepted him and his slave, Upasal is Benai, but they apostled his son. We see that the Bezdin did not paskin like Reb Shimon. Now Amar Belevi, he asks, my time with Reb Shimon, what's Reb Shimon's reasoning that we're allowed to have relatives give Eidos for Kiddush HaChodesh? The Chesed says in the pasuk, Vayomer Shalom Moshe vel Aaron be'eretz Mitzrayim lemar, Hashem said to Moshe and Aaron in the land of Mitzrayim, saying, HaChodesh hazeh lachem, this month is for you. And what do we learn from here? Eidos zu tehek she'er b'chem. This Eidos about Kiddush HaChodesh is permitted with you too, meaning Moshe and Aaron and your brothers. So we see from here the relatives are permitted to give Eidos for Kiddush HaChodesh. Now Rabbanan, how did they understand this pasuk? Eidos zu tehem asur lachem. This Eidos is given over to you, it's in your jurisdiction, meaning only the greatest sages of the generation, such as Moshe and Aaron, they're able to paskin whether it's considered a new month, but not that they're able to give Eidos together. And we had said in the Mishnah, Amar Yesi Ma'aseh b'Tovia Reifa, we had a story with Tovia Reifa that he and his son and his slave, they had all seen the new moon. Now Amar B'Chana bar Rava, Hilchos like Reb Shimon, the halacha is actually like Reb Shimon, that relatives are allowed to give Eidos together when it comes to Kiddush HaChodesh. Now Amar Rav Chana bar Rava, Rav Huna asked Rav Chana bar Rava, Reb Yossi u'maiso, we have Reb Yossi in our Mishnah saying that we are not like Reb Shimon, and we have a story supporting that. Va'ata Amar Hilchos like Reb Shimon, and you're saying the halacha is like Reb Shimon. So Amar Leh, he responded, B'Hazidin Sagin Amrit Kamei de Rav Hilchos like Reb Shimon. There was many times that I said in front of Rav that the halacha is like Reb Shimon, V'Loi Amar Li V'Loi Midi, and he never told me that I was wrong. So Amar Leh, he asked him, Hechitanis, how exactly did you say over in front of Rav that the halacha is like Reb Shimon? So Amar Leh, he responded, Ipcha, I actually told Rav the opposite. I used to tell Rav that Reb Shimon actually holds that relatives are not allowed to be Eidim for Kiddush HaChodesh. So Amar Leh told him, Mishum Hachi L'Amar L'Chav Midi. That's why he didn't tell you anything, because he felt that we should pass like Reb Shimon, and he thought that Reb Shimon held that Eidim are not allowed to be relatives. And now we conclude, Amar Tavi Berei de Mari Tavi, Tavi the son of Mari Tavi said, Amar Mar Ukva in the name Mar Ukva, Amar Shmuel in the name of Shmuel, Hilchos like Reb Shimon, the halachos like Reb Shimon, that relatives are allowed to be Eidim for Kiddush HaChodesh. And now more about different Eidim. Elohein Apsulim, the following are Pasal Midrabanan to be Eidim for Kiddush HaChodesh. Hamasachik B'Kovia, someone that plays with dice, Umalvi B'Ribba, someone that lends with interest, Umafriche Yoinim, and someone that races pigeons. We know that a thief or a robber isn't allowed to be a witness Midaraisa. Now these people that we just mentioned are not full out thieves, but they are taking money in a dishonest way, and therefore the Chachamim passel them from being Eidim. Another category of people that are not allowed to be Eidim is Zecharia Shvius, people that do business with Shemitah produce. One isn't allowed to do business with Shemitah produce, and by this fellow doing so, he shows that he's willing to bend the law for a bit of extra cash, and therefore cannot be trusted as an aid. And Vavadim, slaves as well, they're not allowed to be Eidim. As Aklal, this is the rule. Kol Eidos Sheinu Ishak Sheir Law, any Eidos that a woman is not allowed to give, Af Hein Einan Ksherin Law, they're also not allowed to give this Eidos. The Gemara points out right away, Ha Ishak Sheir Law, however, if a woman would be allowed to give Eidos for something, Af Hein Ksherin Law, so it seems to be that they would also be able to give Eidos in this specific thing. Namely, they would be allowed to testify that a man died, thereby allowing his wife to remarry, and they would be allowed to testify that a woman suspected of adultery actually did sin, thereby preventing her from drinking the Saita water, because a woman is allowed to give this Eidos as well. And Amar Vashi, he says, Zaisameres, that's what we say, Gazlan de Devreim, a Gazlan that's only a Gazlan de Rabbanan, he's only considered that he steals Rabbanan, Kshein la Eidos Isha, they're allowed to give Eidos for anything that a woman is allowed to give Eidos for. And now the parak concludes with a Mishnah which is very unique. Misha Ras HaChodesh, someone that saw the new moon, Ve'ena Yachal Halach, he's not able to get to Bezdin, he's sick, he's infirm. Malichan Oisal Chamor, we're going to actually bring him on a donkey, this is even on Shabbos. Afil Bamita, even in his bed, we're going to carry him in his bed. Ve'imtsu Dolahem, and if there's going to be people ambushing them, the Tzedukim would try to prevent the Kiddush HaChodesh from happening in the proper time, so they would ambush the Eidim. So like Chim B'Yad HaMaklas, they're allowed to take staffs with them, meaning they're allowed to take weapons with them. Ve'im Haisu Derech Chayka, and if it was a very long journey, like Chim B'Yad HaMzainis, they're allowed to take food with them. Sham Halach Laila V'Yayim Mechal Shabbos V'Yetzin Le'ez HaChodesh, if we have a journey that's a maximum, a night and a day, we're allowed to Mechal Shabbos in order to give Eidos edus for Kiddush HaChodesh. Shenemar, the pasuk says, Eila Ma'adei Hashem, Asher Tikru Oisam B'Mayadam. You should call them in their proper time, and we need to make sure that Rosh Chodesh is in its proper time, and therefore we'll have to be Mechal Shabbos in order to establish Rosh Chodesh in its proper time. Hajan Alach Abba Rosh Hashanah. Mazel Tov for finishing the first parak of Maseches Rosh Hashanah. We should be zecher to finish all of Rosh Hashanah together, and of course, all of Shas together. And we continue with the new parak right away. Let's say Sanhedrin doesn't recognize the Eidim that are coming to give Eidos on Kiddush HaChodesh. They don't know who they are. So the Bezdin of the city that these Eidim are coming from, they send people to vouch for these Eidim to say that they're trustworthy people. Now, why is it that we have to have Eidim coming to vouch for the Eidim that are giving Eidos for Kiddush HaChodesh? That's because Barishain originally, they used to accept Eidos from anyone that wanted to come because we trusted anyone that was coming. When once the Baisusim started messing things up, he skinu, so then they were metaken shloyu mekabim element amakirim, that we can only accept Eidos from people that we recognize, and therefore if we don't know who these people are, if Sanhedrin didn't know who these Eidim were, so we have to have other Eidim coming to vouch for them. Now the Gemara asks, my acher, what does that mean that we send someone else to vouch for these witnesses? It seems to be chad, that we send one person to vouch for these witnesses. On top, the Gemara asks, do we trust one witness to say that these people are trustworthy? But Tanya, we have a brayso, we have a ma'aseh that he and his Eidim came with him, Laed Olive, to give Eidos about him. So we see that we have to have a minimum of 2 Eidim testifying about these Eidim that they're trustworthy. We can't just have one person, as is implied by the Mishnah. So Amar Papa answers, my acher, what does it mean that we send acher to vouch for him? Zug acher, we actually send a pair of witnesses to vouch for these witnesses. And Hachan Amistab, it's actually logical to say that. If you don't say that, if they don't recognize him, that's what the first part of the Mishnah said. If Bezdin doesn't recognize him, so my Oisai, what does that mean if they don't recognize him? If you want to say that they don't recognize one aid coming to give Eidos for Kiddush HaChodesh, B'chad mi mehemen, is one aid believed for Kiddush HaChodesh? Mishpat Ksiv Bey. It says about Kiddush HaChodesh that it's Mishpat, and we know that we have to have 2 Eidim for Kiddush HaChodesh. So Elamai Oisai, what does it mean Oisai in the Mishnah? Oisai Hazug. That means that Bezdin doesn't recognize, they don't know the pair of Eidim that's coming to give Eidos for Kiddush HaChodesh. Hachinami, so too my Acher, what does that mean that we're going to send Acher with them? Zug Acher, we're going to send a pair of Eidim to vouch for these Eidim's validity. But now the Gemara asks, V'chad mehemen, one aid is not believed to vouch for another. Vatani, we have a brayso. Ma'aseh Rabbi Nairai. There's a story with Rabbi Nairai. Shahalch etzel ha'aid lahaid Allah b'Shabbos b'Usha, that he actually went to vouch for the aid in Usha. That's where the Sanhedrin was sitting at that point in time, and he went on Shabbos. So we see that one person is believed to vouch for another aid. So Amri, they said, Rabbi Nairai sadachrina havabadei. Rabbi Nairai, he actually had another aid with him. And v'hadloi chashivlei. The only reason why the brayso doesn't say this, it doesn't say that Rabbi Nairai went with someone else. It says that he went by himself. That's mishum kvaydish Rabbi Nairai, because of the covet of Rabbi Nairai. He was such a great person, and we see that even he was Machal Shabbos in order to vouch for an aid that had Eidos for Kiddush HaChodesh. That's why we only mentioned Rabbi Nairai, but he actually did go with someone else. So we see that you do need to have 2 Eidim. Now Rav Ashi Amar, he gives a different answer. Rabbi Nairai sadachrina hava b'Usha. Rabbi Nairai actually knew of another person that already lived in Usha that could testify with him. And also Rabbi Nairai l'tzrufa ba'adei, and Rabbi Nairai went by himself so that he could give Eidos along with this person that was already in Usha. But either which way, we see that you have to have 2 Eidim testifying and vouching for another person. But now the Gemara asks on Rav Ashi, if that's so, that he went by himself, so what's the chiddush? What are we learning from that case? So we answer, you might have thought that you're not allowed to be machal Shabbos misafek